Hello, everyone. My name is Carlos. I'm the founder and CEO of Product School, and I'm here with Scott Voigt, who is the CEO of FullStory. Hey, Scott, how are you doing?
I'm great, Carlos. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us today. Excited to chat with you about all things product and analytics.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right. So, how did you get started?
Well, how much time do you have? I am relatively old compared to you, and so my journey in the let's call it the software as a service world started way back in 1997. We didn't even have the phrase software as a service back then, but I joined a startup that was about 9, 10 people at the time, and we were one of the first companies selling internet banking software to banks around the nation. And that was, we were busy trying to convince banks that they would have a virtual branch. That company grew really, really quickly. We took it public, and I just fell in love with the idea of being part of an early stage company. And so I started as a salesperson there and then slid into a product marketing role and really just got kind of closer to product over time. Did a few other things along the way. And then around 2012, my co-founders and I started working on a product that had nothing to do with FullStory. And when we launched that product and got it into the world, we were trying to understand how our users were interacting with that product we had launched. And we were pretty frustrated with our ability to really understand what our users were doing day to day. And that led us down the path of discovering the product opportunity for FullStory, which in essence helps product leaders and product teams understand what their users are doing in their product in order to make a better digital experience. And so we launched that in 2014 and have been at it for a long time since then.
So it's interesting that you guys are playing in the analytics category, because I remember when I started into product engineering before product, analytics was very technical. It would require people to have a deep knowledge in SQL and databases, basically, to extract data. And now I see this whole trend of visualization and low-code tools that allow people to really go straight to the insights instead of having to spend tons of hours setting up systems that doesn't really add much value. So I remember when you and I met a year or two ago, before when dinners were a thing, and you were sharing a story.
The good old days, yes, dinner.
You were sharing a story about literally an example on how a PM can get an insight. So I don't know if you could maybe tell us a little bit more about how you think product analytics and what would be a good use case for FullStory.
Well, I think we probably all suffer it every single day, where we try to go through some sort of digital journey only to stumble at the finish line or to be frustrated somewhere along the way. The most recent one that jumps out in my mind is my current office is attached to a very reputable burrito chain of restaurants. And they have fantastic burritos. They have a fantastic digital experience for the most part. But I have 10 minutes to break free of a meeting, run down, pick up my burrito, and get back. And so it's all dependent on whether I can make an order within that 5-minute window to run down there. And on numerous occasions, I have gone in to sort of tap my order, put it in my bag, only to have the system fail in an inglorious and inconsistent way, where sometimes the credit card isn't processing correctly, or sometimes there's just a usability, there was a usability bug where the purchase button was covered over by a survey option, and so you just couldn't check out at the time. And I'm just one person trying to order a burrito, but when you compound that by hundreds of thousands of people trying to order a burrito, the revenue gets very, very big there. And I think we've all suffered through that, whether it's trying to change an airline ticket or buy a burrito. Imperfect digital experiences are bad. But as it maps back to the idea of analytics, I think the fundamental flaw that we've all suffered from is the belief that you have to know what you want to know before you can measure that. right? Did somebody click on the add to burrito button is something that we might have known we wanted to measure, but we didn't understand that we needed to measure both the interaction of the survey overlay and the burrito button at the same time. And if you failed to instrument one of those things by adding an event to it, you're blind to it, and you'll never have the data to it, and you'll never be able to do the analysis of it. And so, we had all suffered that problem as product folks when we started FullStory, and our thesis was, let's just collect all of the data by default and index all of that data by default. And then let's give you some visual cues so you don't have to feel like you're an analyst in order to answer questions. You're just somebody that has a question and you need to be able to solve a problem. That's why we built FullStory.
And I'm glad you brought up examples that are related to real life, because when we think about digital experiences, it's not just things that happen on the internet. It's real world stories, you buying something or having an offline experience that somehow is connected with your online experience as well.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. If you think about a traditional product manager, perhaps, at a big box retailer, and that product manager is in charge of, say, the lawnmowers in a big box retailer, that product manager can go in and he or she can watch how people interact with their product, and they touch it and they feel it. But when you get into the digital world, it's much, much harder to get that same sort of level of empathy on how are people actually engaging with the product. You're left with a chart or a graph, and a lot of the times you're just trying to puzzle in between the steps of that chart or the graph to really understand how did they have an emotional connection with your product. Was it a good one or a bad one?
And another trend we've seen in the product world now, when it's talking about product-led growth, and how products can help qualify certain users before they interact with sales. I think we're seeing a paradigm shift here where the growth is being led by product and by qualifying what the users really want versus just pounding the phone and pushing someone something that they might not want. So how are you thinking about that, and how is FullStory being positioned to capture that value?
It is a very good question. So when we started FullStory back in 2014, we were very much a product-led organization where the only way you really couldn't even talk to a salesperson. You had to go to FullStory, you had to try it online. If you liked it, you bought it online. And our thesis and hope was, if we delivered a great product experience for you, you would tell your friends about it, and that would drive a little bit of word of mouth. And maybe if you changed jobs, you would take your tools with you to the next company and the next company. And so we believed deeply that if we just built a very self-evident, usable product experience, best products would win. And I think as we started to get into bigger and bigger sales opportunities, we realized we really did need some sales assistance as we tried to navigate bigger organizations, to listen to the use cases of those types of buyers, and then adjust the product accordingly. And I will shoot you straight. There was a real tension for a while, and still is to some regard, in understanding how to balance the product-led approach to things. You can still go online and try FullStory right now if you want to. But increasingly, we do like having a sales person help unlock and show all the value that is inherent in FullStory through a proof of value cycle. I think as product managers, you got to it goes back to the basics of understanding who your audiences are. And there are certain types of buyers that do not want to have a sales cycle. They want to try it and they want to buy it and be left alone. And we try to really work with those folks as quick as we can. And then there are other people that really need some hand holding, especially when you've got lots and lots of users around an organization with different types of needs and use cases.
Now I want to switch gears a little bit and talk more about you. You are CEO of a large organization. So I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, how did you get there? What are some of those things that you think that serve you well in order to get to where you are today?
Well, here's a cheat code for everybody that wants to be a CEO. Start your own company and give yourself the title of CEO. That's the fastest way to do that. I don't know that on my own merits I would ever get these three letters affixed to me. I don't know. I can't say for sure that these are things that got me to where we are, but these are things that I do. We talk a lot about the concept of empathy at FullStory. We just think that is a value that everybody can benefit from by just starting by putting yourself in somebody else's shoes to say, are we meeting where this person is? And that helps in interpersonal connection and all sorts of ways. Certainly for a product manager trying to understand where your users are coming from, there's a lot of value there. I cannot say that I am inherently an empathetic person. I took a quiz once upon a time and it turns out I'm not. But I think you can practice empathy. And early on, I recognized that there was a lot of value in trying to listen more than speak, to try to practice asking probing questions of other people to try to understand their position on things. On the flip side of that, I do like a good conversation and I like to chit chat quite a bit. And I think that has probably helped me through my career a bit. One other thing I'll call out, just because I wish I had learned this earlier in life, is I think visual thinking or visual communications is something that can be very beneficial. So I like to get to the whiteboard very quickly and find an x-axis and a y-axis and draw things out, just because I think that it helps convey information on two fronts. One, it helps me get it out of my head, even if it's scribbly and nobody else can see it. But I think it helps a listener also engage in sort of a better medium. So get to the whiteboard as fast as you can and practice visual thinking. Tools like Miro have been really, really good for our organizations to get outside of just a PowerPoints or a Word doc.
We are big fans of Miro and Mural as well. I hear you on being more visual, especially now that everyone is working remotely. Just by the way, out of curiosity, is that a massive whiteboard what you have there?
Yeah, it is a massive whiteboard, and it stays scribbled on. I erased it because I didn't want anybody to see the company secrets.
Well, and I'm sure learning doesn't stop. So I also want to know what's in your bookshelf. What are you passionate about learning now?
It's good. So let's see, on the business side of things, in a post-COVID world right now, we are thinking about strategy a lot again. How do we take where FullStory is and the success we've had to date and extend that to be something that is truly a transformational company for the world? And so, I can't say that I've got all the strategy cards in my deck, so I am constantly out reading more. Someone shared with me, it's worth Googling up, Wardley Maps. If you have never seen this, it's a full book. It's available on Medium, and it intersects with this idea of visual communication. It gives you a language to sort of create a landscape of your own products and your own sort of competitive space and your users, and over time move them in a visual way. And it's very helpful. So Wardley Maps has been a really good pro tip. In my personal life, this is a little bit cheesy, but I found a late in life love of the game of lacrosse, and so I'm practicing lacrosse on the weekends, trying to get better there.
Nice. I'm a huge soccer fan. Of course, I'm from Spain, so what else can I like, right?
try lacrosse out. You're gonna like that.
I have, especially with my kids, because now they're getting into that.
There you go.
So anyway, here in tech, especially in Silicon Valley, there's a myth that says you have to do things that don't scale, especially at the very beginning. Yep. But I believe that can be true as well as you grow and you have to delegate more and more things as a CEO. Obviously, you don't have all the time in the world. So what are some of the things that are still so core to your values that you want to continue doing yourself?
Yeah, two things jump to mind. The first is I continue to sell. So I like to get in front of customers and workshop new presentation materials. And interact with the customer as they're trying to understand their own set of problems. And so I won't let go of a deal. I'll find a deal or two that I like, and I always kind of keep them with me, and I try to sell and understand the process all the way to close. And I think that's a pretty important thing for all PMs to do, by the way, is to stay close to sales. On the other, I still like having customer conversations. And so I try to reach out, once a week and find a customer and just have a conversation with them. What's working, what's not, what are your problems, hopes and dreams, and that might be something that can help spark ideas for us down the road.
And when they know that the CEO is reaching out, do they freak out or do they take it well?
I mean, this is not impressive to anybody. I think it's pretty easy for them to be like, oh, this is some chucklehead that just wants to chat.
Well, the other day I was on the live chat of the website, and I like to do the same. That I blog at least 1 hour every week, and someone asked me, "In which department are you?" And I said, "I don't know. I guess I do a little bit of everything. I'm the CEO." And they were like, "I don't believe you." I said, "Let me prove it to you. I'm going to send you an email right now." And I did, and then we actually jumped on the phone, and it was really amazing. So I really applaud all the leaders who would spend the time working closely with users on a sales capacity or just in a pure user research capacity.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, if we're product companies, you have to stay as close to the product as possible for forever and always. And so, yeah, I enjoy it too. That's kind of the most fun part of the day, is getting to talk to potential customers or customers.
So I guess you guys drink your own champagne and use FullStory internally. You also mentioned visualization tools like Noro. What else is some of the tools that you can't live without?
Well, let's see. So it starts with Salesforce. We do use a lot of Salesforce. From a product perspective, though, so when our customers, we have a lot of customers, when customers write in asking for a specific feature, or if we hear something in the field, we make sure to log that into Salesforce so we can tie it back to an account. But from Salesforce, that then pipes into Clubhouse, and we use Clubhouse to help prioritize and to create product plans associated with the rollout. And then I would say from Clubhouse, we use Figma a fair bit to help prototype things. I love a good Figma prototype to get in there as early as possible and comment. That the team probably hates it when I get in there and do that, but it just brings it to life. Again, it's like visual thinking. You can really, versus back in the day where you used to just have to write use cases out to see and get a sense for it, is very helpful. Let's see. And then I would say Miro, we've mentioned Miro, is something that is a tool that I've got probably 5 Miro boards up at any given time to help plot things out. And then, yes, we use a lot of FullStory. What is interesting about FullStory, though, I know I sound like I'm selling here, but 2 things. One, from a product perspective, we use it very, very much about launch. So as soon as we launch something, we'll set up a segment, we'll monitor the segment to understand how users are interacting with that new feature, even if it's in betas. And you just get the earliest signal so you can do rapid evolution of the product as it comes out. The other thing that we do is we do use it in sort of non-traditional ways. I mean, today I was on a call with, we've got something we call Bookings Council, and we were trying to understand our trial process. And, somebody that wasn't even related to the product organization pulled up an example of a visitor that was completely lost during the trial process and pointed out, I mean, this was basically an internal consultant saying, hey, I'm not part of the product organization, but look at this. This is awful. And he was right. We need to fix that. So it's nice that it's something that a cross-functional group of people can use together.
I think that's a beautiful way to talk about democratization of data. I'm a big believer in allowing people who are not just part of the product team to use product tools and bring those ideas. I long understood that best ideas can come from anywhere, not necessarily from the founder or the CEO. and seeing,
especially not from the founder or CEO.
right?
I think it's important to call that out. If people just look to that person and say that's where the good ideas come from, they're likely to just vacate the responsibility of even trying to be creative.
Absolutely. And I am a fan of using collaborative tools. Obviously, Slack, it's an easy one, but others that allow people to literally go to Salesforce without being a Salesforce admin, or looking at a database without knowing anything about CQL and just asking a question, like I would be asking you, like, how much revenue did we generate last month? Or, like what the users that signed up last month are doing today? That is so powerful. And so I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, we try to do it. The other nice thing is that if you can take data and, I hate to say anecdote, but data and example, and marry those two things together, you get to speak to a wider audience of people. You get to say, look, here's what a conversion rate looks like. Okay, here's what it looks like when somebody falls off the conversion rate. And it really just drives activity much, much quicker if you can have that 1-2 punch.
Mm-hmm. So also want to talk about careers within FullStory. Like, obviously, you have strong opinions. You're a product person, which I appreciate, and I'm sure a lot of people in the company appreciate. But the team is growing. And how do you draw that line between kind of the influence that you want to have on the roadmap versus the influence that the product leaders also want to have in shaping that vision?
Yeah, let's see. I mean, I do think it starts with making sure that people understand, like you said earlier, good ideas can come from anywhere. So we come back to just some high level, if you're looking at the horizon, this is the direction that we want to go. For FullStory, that is, we want there to be perfect digital experience everywhere. Too often it is imperfect. And so as long as we're within the rails of helping our customers help their users have a perfect digital experience, that's the problem set we want people to chase after. And so what's interesting about that is everybody in the world lives in such a digital environment now. People can bring examples of what a bad digital experience looks like or feels like. And they can say, here's what confusion means to me. And you can understand that problem set, whether you're a salesperson or a product manager, and then you can start to say, how might we help our customers solve that problem? Or organizationally, we just try not to put up too much bureaucracy. We're not that big a company where people feel like they have to go up the chain in order to get something approved. We try to be pretty nimble from that front. I also think, tools like Slack is a good example of something where everybody's voice is equal in Slack. And so a good idea that is well rationed and reasoned can be surfaced to a lot of people in a hurry. And we encourage that.
And then for people out there who are thinking, wow, this sounds amazing. I really want to get my hands dirty and start building digital experiences. What would you say are like some advice for them so they can get started?
Well, let me clarify the question. Do you mean if I'm a product manager and I want to start building perfect digital experiences?
Even before that, let's say I'm a marketer or I'm a designer. I've been toying with the idea of becoming a PM. And, this still sounds a little bit too far. Like, how can they kind of go from 0 to 1 and feel less intimidated?
Well, I mean, for starters, understand the craft that you're trying to fill. So if you want to be a product manager, you should dive deep into everything product management, and you should understand the frameworks and the approaches. I think you can never stop learning by seeking the advice of people that have gone before you. I still reach out to people my senior and ask just questions like, hey, I don't understand what I'm doing. Can you explain it to me? So never stop seeking advice. Because none of us know all the answers. All you can do is try to get as many perspectives as you can out there. This is kind of a minor one, but I do think that maybe not everybody, but if you can get a chance to have some experience, either being a direct seller, like carrying a bag and really understanding the difficulty and art of conveying a product message and understanding the buyer and having those things meet, there's a lot of value. I think being a sales engineer would be an interesting step on somebody's path to becoming a product manager, just because it gives you a little bit of best of both worlds, some of the technical side of things, also that prospect-facing side of things.
Well, I agree. I think sales is so underrated and so necessary, and everything is to say at the end of the day. You don't need to have the title in order to convince your partner to do something, or on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's right. It makes for good anecdotes on an interview, by the way. It's like, hey, listen, I went and put myself out there on the front line, and I understand those interactions. And so hopefully you can bring that back when you're in an interview.
And now for the senior PM folks out there, they have some experience. They're already thinking about what's next. What do you think are the biggest opportunities for product managers today?
Well, I'm biased, but your digital experience is imperfect. And so if you can really start to have a system of internally having processes around identifying, prioritizing, and closing the loop on faster and faster cycles with both analytics and sort of example behind you, I think that's a new frontier right now. I've been kind of kicking some ideas around on what I would call the cycle of digital experience improvement, where there's a data collection and an awareness and a validation and quantification and rectification and prevention phase of those things, and to understand the workflows for all of those. I think there's some fun work on the horizon there.
Well, Scott, it's been great to have you on the show. Thank you for sharing some of your insights with all of us. Is there anything else you would like to add before we wrap things up?
Well, I would point out that you're right. FullStory is hiring, and we are always looking for product managers. And so feel free to go to fullstory.com and have a look at our jobs page. And if you feel like you're a good fit, we'd love to have a conversation with you. Thank you very much for the time today.
Bye. Thank you.
All right. Bye.